a good start there?
Yes.
Hold on, Jessica. Hello, everyone. Hello. So my name is Jessica. So confession here. I literally finished this presentation a couple hours ago, and it was a very heated moment. But I'm so proud that I finally I was able to finish it finally. So yeah, let's get this started. I see some familiar faces in the crowd, which is great, and it also made me realize that it might have been a little bit early for me to return to Smith. But I also think it's a very huge honor to know that it's only been 2 years since I've been in many of your shoes. So where do I even start? Okay, let's take a look at my photo here. So this was me, or at least this is all you can see. So exactly around this time 2 years ago, I was crying under the covers of my bed in room 217 of Northrop House because I was having one of those premature quarter-life crises. You know what I mean. So it was like I was preparing for one of those zombie apocalypses, except I was becoming a zombie and not the other way around. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was like, where the fuck am I gonna go? It's not like I can say it's 2016 YOLO. I was applying to like Buddha knows how many applications on a weekly basis, right? Like right after March. So growing up as a daughter of 2 refugee immigrant parents, I didn't know what my opportunities were, much less complain about the lack of opportunities. So I was taught that whenever there was one, I had to grab it, and I had a chance. So when I got accepted into the Schuler Foundation, which is a scholarship program in my high school, my outlook on my future trajectory completely changed after that. So going out of state to attend a well-known private liberal arts college was a privilege that I know not many people I know have. So it was the people at Smith who truly opened my eyes to what was going on in the world. And I remember growing up, I had a lot of difficulty even articulating myself with the inequalities and prejudice I've seen. But taking my first Asian American Studies course was a big step. Like, ironically, I didn't expect myself to be so in love with the course when I first signed up. At that time, it was just like a first-year seminar that I had to take as a graduation requirement. I was like, I already know what it means to be an Asian American, but I really didn't. Like, even the concept of identifying myself as part of the Asian American community was a very new thing for me. So I know that Professor Floyd Chung isn't able to come today, but I know that his secret fan club is here to share our feels about his class and solidarity. And coming to Smith, having to engage in these dialogues, literally whenever, not even just in class, was such an eye-opening educational experience that I now realize is very hard to find, especially when you're in the real world, because in the real world, some people prefer to steer away from having conversations on race theory and identity politics. You know, in the real world, you can't make white people jokes all the time, as funny as they are. And sorry to break it to you, not a lot of people are going to give you a fist bump for wanting to overthrow the white cis hetero patriarchy, as heroic as your efforts may be. So, in other words, access to the language, access to the vocabulary to articulate myself was the privilege that I had acknowledged and I'm very grateful of receiving while being here at Smith. And that's what inspired me to start Project Voice, which is a podcast series aimed at increasing visibility on issues that Asian American women face as a community. So I started Project Voice at a very low point in my life. I was pretty much on my own. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, so none of my family was nearby to support me. I started pitching myself as a digital content creator, but most of the projects that I took on didn't really speak to my personal mission, including Project Voice when it started out. Alright, lost my place there. And I took up a job in Boston that paid me $11 an hour, which is shocking to think after realizing how much of I sold my soul to the 4 years I spent here to get a degree, but at that time I believed that the experience mattered more than the money itself, which was, I would say, very unmodel minority of me. And after 3 months working there, though, I realized I wasn't receiving the kind of experience that I expected. So I quit after my first summer out. So, interesting piece of advice, but my first piece of advice to you as future postgraduates, as smithy as it sounds, is to quit when you're not in love with the life you're leading. My decision to quit is valid, and your decisions, whatever they may be, are valid too. Quitting doesn't mean that you're a quitter, it just means that you're smart enough to know what you want and what you don't want. To me, it was never about the money or the position or the prestige that came along with the job. As much as I am grateful to know how much my parents have sacrificed coming to this country for their family, I knew that I couldn't let them define what success meant for me. And to me, success meant time to myself, more time to work on the projects that for the people I care about, and if it means taking up temp jobs so that I would have enough to pay the bills, and I still have enough time to work on my podcast, I do it. So I did that during my year in Boston. Project Voice didn't start off as smooth sailing as you'd expect. It fell apart before it launched. Actually, my vision was to start a YouTube channel, or at least a video series that focused on inspiring stories of Asian American women and their journey with self-identity. But after receiving a lot of opposition for having the videos published, because not everyone was comfortable with the idea of having their face shown on camera, I was stuck for a while and almost at the edge of giving up because, like I said before, I was also spending too much time working on projects that weren't long-term and sustainable. So it wasn't until I started at a temp job at a marketing agency that allowed me to binge on podcasts that gave me the idea that I should start one on my own. I got resourceful, like how my parents would have been proud to see, and extracted the audio files from my previous interviews and turned them into the first conversations that you can now tune in on Project Voice. So every episode after that explored a topic that ranged from my friends' own experiences to my own, or to people I've met through social media, online, or in person. But I also believe that there's still a lot more that we can do as Asian Americans to dispel these stereotypes by simply creating content instead of waiting for these opportunities to arise. Oftentimes, as a minority, there is this burden of representation that I feel, especially when I started working on Project Voice, because there weren't many other podcasts out there serving to the Asian audience, so I felt a lot of pressure to not mess up. But at the same time, it is frustrating to receive, critiques about my work when I know that it can never be fully representative of the fully Asian American experience. But my point is, I do believe that if you want to have your story out there for the world to see, then you need to be the one to start it. So I hope that my journey will help inspire and guide you to realize that you're not alone on this unpredictable roller coaster ride that we call life. And that's okay to steer away from the path most people take, because after all, this is what a student does. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing your journey and your story. So next, we're going to have Sahra V give her keynote speech.
I definitely agree about how you frame your questions. And another thing that I would encourage you to think about is how much agency you are including in your process, your creative process, and how much agency are you allowing your subjects or the folks you are interviewing document, right? So for example, in documentary filmmaking, the traditional path of filmmaking, like the westernized, like the very strict producer, creator gaze on the subject, and the traditional ways of documentary filmmaking would say that we don't allow probably any agency, on the subject to control the process or have input in the process afterwards. And I personally don't abide by the traditional forms of documentary filmmaking or interviewing. So, and it's up to you to decide where you want to go line. So for me, I always try to offer a sense of comfort and trust and agency before we start. That includes giving transparency, includes letting them know what my objectives are, my intentions are, asking them what their intentions are, objectives are, and do this interview and seeing where I'm at, right? And then when we're engaged in the interviewing process, being very aware of how you frame the questions. And then once I end, I allow the person interviewing to say to me, hey, I don't want you to include this, or hey, I take this back. In some instances, that's not allowed, right? In some instances, say with more traditional media, if you're caught or recorded saying something, it's fair game for the producers to use it, right? And so it's up to you to decide how much agency you want to allow. I know people who kind of allow folks to be in the editing room, right? I don't do that personally. I just had an encounter situation where I would need to do that. And I'll actually tell folks I'm working with, if there's something you said during the video you don't want me to include, you can let me know. But otherwise, I don't run drafts with the folks in the interviews for more efficiency and also the creative process.
So now we're going to open it up if you guys want questions.
So we're actually taking a class right now on Asian Americans and in media, basically. So it has a lot to do with this. And I guess my question is, from personal experience, how have you guys, or have you experienced a change in the attitudes of large media conglomerates like NBC on kind of minority-centered, minority-produced media? Because we haven't really, or at least I didn't grow up seeing a lot of that, but in this day and age, it's becoming more prevalent.
Yeah, I think that a lot of bigger media companies definitely, at the very least, want to hit checkbox. Diversity right now is undeniable, and if you're not with the whole diversity game, then you're not cool, you're not relevant, you're not popular, right? So in one sense, diversity is becoming more relevant and more people are paying attention to it, but almost only to the point where it serves a checkbox, right? So from my experience, from what I've seen in some places like HuffPost or NBC, I think that the people who are working those verticals are very passionate about it, right? But then maybe the folks who are above the verticals, there's a clear ceiling for how far you can push it, and there's a clear limitation for the resources that certain companies want to really pour into something, because they kind of want it to exist to hit a checkbox, but I still hear about a lot of like resistance within the company.
Well, I consume a lot of YouTube and Netflix, so I do see like a lot, like growing representations in series and channels, and there's still a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the content that's out there. But I do believe that we're making traction, and that there's growing awareness in the upper, like the more influential, like YouTubers or influencers in media in general. Where like, the one that I'm thinking about is Mama Productions. Like I grew up on that, and Jubilee, and seeing how that they too, even though they are, you know, Asian American, they're just starting like becoming more aware of starting dialogues on race and identity. So it's great to see that even like bigger influencers within the community are like caring more about it. Because once you see that happening in the like professionals, we're not going to stop. That's what I'm saying.
So this question is for both of you, but Jessica brought up the idea of burden of representation, and I'm a teacher right now in a predominantly white high school, and I've felt the burden of representation particularly hard in the past month or so. My mentor teacher wanted me to teach Beloved because he thought it would be better because I'm a person of color, and it's been so taxing, and I just want to hear about like how you practice self-care and take care of yourself during this process.
Can you clarify what you mean by burden of representation? Do you mean the pressure from other people to represent the entire people, community?
Yeah. So I guess like burden of representation can be like as broad as that in these predominantly white communities, but I think it can also be specific, like being one of the only Asian American people who are producing podcasts, or being an Asian American filmmaker. So I guess like you could take that generally or specifically.
So because I haven't worked in a company, since 2012, so I don't experience the burden of representation within a company setting, right? But I can speak to the experience of creating content. And to be honest, I never think about that. I've never felt a pressure to represent anybody's experiences, and like I've never felt that directly. No one's really come up to me and say, "Well, I expect you to represent all Asian Americans." And if they did, I would just dismiss them. Like if you're coming at me like that, you're not really coming at me the right way. It's not important. And also, I don't feel that for myself personally. I don't feel personal pressure or need to represent all people or all Asian Americans or all Asian American women or anything, because that's not genuine to who I am. And that's me displacing and uncentering my process. And as you can probably see, my process is very centered on my core and who I am. So, like the very most I think about the people who I'm working with and the people who I'm documenting and interviewing and how I'm representing them. But I don't feel a pressure to represent all Asian American women or Asian communities because I just can't. One, I can't. And two, to do that, I feel would just perpetuate this idea of the monolith, to perpetuate the idea of the Asian conglomerate as being very one-dimensional. And so I never operate, my creative process, I never operate from that mindset. I just think more about me, what I care about, what I want to do, where I want to serve, how I want to evolve, honestly, yeah. And if I were to feel that pressure, honestly say, like if I was getting that, I would just resist it, If it doesn't feel good to my process or to your process as a teacher, if it doesn't feel genuine or true or right, just find a way to resist it, right? Whether it's speaking up to the person coming at you directly and saying like, hey, I feel like you're putting the burden of representation on me. Hey, I think that maybe you can take a challenge and teach it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what your boss would be, but I would find a way to resist it.
Yeah, that's a tough question, but I definitely have felt that. I mean, I'm a teacher too, but in Korea. So over there, like, my colleagues apparently don't really come from the same background as I do. So sometimes it just takes disengaging from that kind of space because it is a lot on you, and you have to take care of yourself first. And it's a great thing where it's like self-care is like the greatest revolution, but just like being yourself. Like I agree, like being yourself still, like true and true. And if disengaging from these spaces is what it takes, then you should do it. Because it's hard to fit in, and it's hard to keep the conversation going or educating other people all the time. So that's something that I'm struggling with too, or like that's a challenge that I've had to do too as a teacher. And I think it's also like reframing like how you approach this idea of the burden of representation. And I guess starting out with Project Voice, it definitely felt a lot. But over time, just getting other people involved, getting other communities that I'm not a part of involved, that lessens the weight, that lessens that feeling of having that burden. So just, I feel that, partially it's just me trying to be more educated on these issues and topics that I'm not aware of because I'm not part of that background.
I just want to add, since we're talking about self-care, you asked about how do we balance self-care. I do a lot of self-care, which means I just hang out a lot and unplug a lot, I go out a lot, I hang out with my friends and my partner a lot, and have a drink like almost every day. So self-care is fun for me, right? I like to have a lot of fun. But I also want to just put out there the difference that I discovered recently too. The difference between self-care and personal development, right? Self-care and personal development. Self-care is like finding ways to decompress, right? And to enjoy and have some leisurely time and to unplug and to just relax and just relax, right? I realize now that self-care and even self-reflection, right, taking time to think and think and think, is different from personal development. Personal development is like making decisions and doing things and taking action to grow yourself, to challenge yourself, to get outside your comfort zone. So I'm not saying that they need to replace each other one another, but since we were talking about self-care, I just want to kind of add to that piece that self-care is great, let's do that. And it's also about personal development beyond self-care.
I agree. Yeah. No, that's an interesting topic because that's like personal development is such a huge challenge, and I had this conversation with this other friend of mine who was like, I don't believe in safe spaces, I believe in brave spaces. So brave spaces is like equivalent to just getting yourself outside your comfort zone. But I would say don't put yourself too down, or don't feel too badly if the first try out and it doesn't work out. It takes a lot of resistance. It takes a lot of effort and emotional labor, mental labor, and but persistence is key, and being willing to grow in that way is important.
So I have two separate questions, one for Jessica, one for Sarah. So I'll start with Jessica's. Could you recount an instance here at Smith for a specific moment, whether it be in Floyd's class or just hanging out with the AAPI community, but kind of inspired you to do API activism?
Well, I started blogging in Chloe's class, and that was awesome. But I also, it was just like a lot of unpacking past trauma experiences and things that I never really addressed growing up as a Native American, and it felt great, like having that out there and published too. So that was one way. I'm really into digital content creation, so. That was just one, and then I took up intro to digital media during my January intern. It was like during my last year here at Smith, and I was like, I've always wanted to learn how to edit videos and edit audio files, and started with creating my first podcast episode there, and that course really got me thinking about like the different channels that we can use to serve as a platform for AAPI activism.
Thank you. And for Sahra, can you speak more about your experience opening a restaurant and how like food and like through food we can kind of like continue activism, or how like food can represent like activism?
Yeah, okay, so the restaurant thing, it happened kind of really organically and spontaneously. My partner in it, who's the chef, his name is Johnny. I met him when I was filming Maker's Lane. I was filming someone else who was a friend of his, right? And then we ended up living in the same neighborhoods, and then Johnny's also Vietnamese American, so we just kind of bonded over like being Vietnamese in Bushwick, which is a part of Brooklyn. And he just, one day he came to me and said that he was opening a restaurant, he needed my help doing some of the creative like development. And then I was like, oh, I was like, okay, well, let's just do it together, right? So that's just how I partnered up. It was like after one conversation. Mm-hmm. And, the way I invested in the restaurant was when I worked for those 3 years full time. The first year was like Arts for Humanity. The second 2 years was the Director of Brand Success Program. I saved like as much money as I could, right? I wasn't sure like what I was going to do with that money, but I just knew that I wanted to have savings, and maybe if I quit my job, I could have use my savings, or maybe one day I can invest it and develop some passive income, right? So I mean, my brain, I'm definitely like the artist is the left side of your brain, is the creative one, left or right, whatever. I'm definitely like the left, I'm like left side heavy in my brain, but I also like, I think just growing up with an immigrant household, like I also didn't want to be poor, right? And I also wanted to have a financially stable life, but I didn't want to compromise my creative life, right? So I was like, oh, well, if I save this money, maybe one day I can invest it and I'll have passive income, then I'll never have to work. And so that's how I invested in my first restaurant. It was through, my own savings, and honestly, it was 4 of us, and we all just put all the money together. There's like no VC, no outside funding. We were all under 30 at the time. So what's cool about that narrative is that, so if you're familiar with Bushwick, which Christine is, right? Bushwick is rapidly gentrifying, right? And Lucy's Vietnamese Kitchen is a part of that experience, right? Mostly because our main demographic customers are like hipsters, right? What's cool about the narrative is that gentrification is really unstoppable in the way capitalism in our capitalist society is unstoppable. And so what's cool about our narrative is that, Johnny is born and raised Bushwick, right? He's a local. So instead of having just like massive corporations or white-owned corporations come into Bushwick and gentrify and open shop or buy all the land, which happens often, at least our restaurant is started by a Bushwick born and raised local who's also Vietnamese American, right? And through our shop, we employ mostly inexperienced people who are very young in high school, college, who have no cooking experience. Because in New York City, if you don't have 2 years of kitchen experience, you don't get hired anywhere, right? It's also another way that we try to work with the community, right? We don't require you to have cooking experience, but if you're young and you want to learn, like, we'll take you and we'll train you. And if you do well, we'll keep you. If you don't do well, we'll fire you. We don't give handouts, we just give opportunities, right? And so Lucy is actually, for a lot of our workers, it's their first job. And then, we also work with people who maybe have criminal backgrounds who have a hard time getting a job, or maybe have no experience, or maybe it's got laid off. Like, there are small ways that we try to help shift the narrative through entrepreneurship, even though we are part of the process of education, right? So I say that to say that there are many, many ways and many, many fronts which you can show resistance and you can also show progress, right? Like, you can say, I don't want to be a part of the gentrification, I don't even want to own a business there. That's fine if you don't take the opportunity, someone else will, and they're most likely not going to be a local, right?
Well, thank you so much. I think
That's it?
Sadly, we have 5 minutes left, so we should probably wrap things up.
So my question is more about like how do you build up like resilience against failure and how failure has improved you and grown you through your experience.
Yeah, so I was like on Project Voice the first time around, but I was like, no, I'm gonna make this happen because I was working on like various other projects and I just wanted to get something out there. So I think it's just try and error. A lot of like acknowledging that yes, you're gonna mess up, and yes, it's not gonna be perfect, but at least you're gonna have something out there for people to see. And that was what my end goal was. It was to have something done and to have something created and be seen. And I think that's what like someone who wants to be a digital hunter and is now is able to do what I'm doing because I just started.
I think for me, one of the ways to embrace failure is to shift your relationship with failure and to shift your definition of failure, right? So I think that failure is great because failure is an opportunity to learn and overcome and evolve. And if you never fail, then you're never really learning or growing or evolving, right? And if you never fail, then that journey sounds pretty boring to me, right? It's like everything is great, everything is great, everything is great, everything is great. Like, does that sound fun to anyone? Like, that sounds really boring, right? So for me, I shifted my relationship to failure, and when I did fail, yes, there's the ego, yes, there's the pride, yes, oh, I'm embarrassed, oh, this sucks, the rest of my film, whatever, right? If you just shift your relationship with it and your ideas with it, I have to just push through and work through it, right? And whatever emotions that I feel around it, whether it's negative, it's hard, it's okay. We're all human, right? Feel it and then push through it.
So I think that's a really inspirational note to end on. So thank you everyone who came to the event. Thank you so much, Jessica and Sarah, for coming. And I hope you all feel somewhat more inspired on your Saturday night. And thank you so much for sharing your
Oh my
stories.
gosh. Can we give it one more time for all the organizers? ASA, Kaya, BSA, Rebecca, Haley, Emily, Christine, Sahra, Tiffany, with Jenny. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for hanging out on Saturday night. That's amazing.
So Christine, our ASA, BSA, and all of us, want to give you some flowers just for coming and like spending your time here.
So cute.